Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about close reading strategies. Close reading will help you to become a better and more effective reading. It's a strategy that allows you to take apart the text and to assist you in the comprehension of that text. So what exactly is close reading? Well, close reading is the thoughtful, critical analysis of a text that focuses on significant details or patterns in order to develop a deep, precise understanding of the text form, craft, meanings, etc. It's a key requirement of the Common Core state standards and directs the reader's attention to the text itself. Wait, what? Well, simply stated, close reading is the purpose of reading. It means paying careful attention to what you read to help you to better understand. It's important to remember we don't just read to read. We read to understand, and close reading will help you to better understand the text that you're reading. So the Florida state standards that are covered within close reading are LAFS 4.RL.1.1, which states, refer to key details and examples in a text when explaining what the text says explicitly and when drawing inferences from the text. We also have 2.4, determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in the text, including those that allude to significant characters, such as those found in mythology. And 4.4, which says read with sufficient accuracy and fluency to support comprehension. Read on level text with purpose and understanding, and use context to confirm or self-correct word recognition and understanding. Rereading as necessary. Now, those are three standards. Now, the strategy of close reading can fall into many different standards, but those are just three that I wanted to point out. So how do we do this thing they call close reading? Last year you may have learned some strategies on close reading, but these are 5 simple strategies that I have that I like to use when I am close reading. The first one is to number the paragraphs. The first thing, after you've read the title of the text, the first thing that you want to do is to go ahead and number your paragraphs. You number your paragraphs on the left-hand margin, and it's important to understand or to remember that a conversation that's carried on between 2 or more people should be considered as a single paragraph. All right. The second thing that you want to do is you want to chunk your text. Now, by chunk your text, I'm telling you to put it into parts. Many texts it's either beginning, middle, or end, or texts are divided into subcategories or sub-details. So go ahead and chunk your text. Now simply use a squiggly line to divide up your text. And number 3 is to underline and circle with a purpose. With a purpose, I mean you could simply underline every single word of every single paragraph, but that's not that effective. What you want to do is to underline the very key details in each and every paragraph. And then by circle, I want you to circle key dates or key figures or maybe some abbreviations or some key terms that are used within the text. You can also circle words that you are not sure of, that you need to come back to later to try to determine the meaning. You circle it and then maybe put a question mark next to it. And number 4 is on the left margin. You need to summarize what the author is saying, what you feel that the author is trying to get across in each of the areas that you identified in number 2. And then in the right margin, you want to dig deeper into the text. You may have questions that you want to ask the teacher or ask your group later after you've read the text. So identify those questions, and then maybe try to identify things like the theme or the key components of the text. So when you're done, your text should look something like this. All right. Now, this may look a little bit daunting at first with all those circles and underlines and question marks and numbers and squiggly lines and so forth. But once we practice a little bit, you'll get to the point where this all looks very organized. So you'll note that the key details are underlined, and there is not a whole lot of underlines. There is a lot of words still left without underlines. You'll also note that the things like numbers and abbreviations and key details are circled. And then you'll note the squiggly lines that's where the author has broken the text into chunks. And then on the left-hand margin, you'll note that the reader has taken and identified key details or summarized each of the chunks. And then in the right-hand margin, some questions, and he's identifying exactly what the author is doing in those the chunked areas. All right. So now that we've talked about it a little bit, are you ready to get started? So we've went ahead and selected our text. This text just so happens to be an excerpt or a piece of a larger text called Fulton's Success by Lewis Minor Huey Cobblestone, and it's about Henry Fulton and his first attempts at showing the public his invention of the steamboat. All right, so now that we've read the title, we want to go ahead and number our paragraphs. So we've got paragraph number 1, paragraph number 2, paragraph number 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so now the next step will be to chunk our text, but before we chunk our text, we want to just go ahead and quickly read through the text one time. We call this the cold read. And Fulton's Folly, people jeered as they passed Brown's shipyard in New York City. It was 1807, and Brown was the site where inventor Robert Fulton and his partner Robert R. Livingston, Jr. were building a very strange boat. The two men knew that putting a steam engine on board a vessel was still new and dangerous, but they ignored the taunts. They were convinced that Fulton's steamboat idea, combined with Livingston's financial backing, would revolutionize transportation in America. And they were right. On August 17th, after devoting about 5 months to its construction, Fulton launched a vessel that measured 150 feet long, 13 feet wide, and 9 feet deep. Fulton and a group of invited guests prepared to steam up the Hudson River from New York City to Albany, the state capital. The guests had to put up with primitive conditions: no cabins, no beds, and a roaring, uncovered steam engine mounted in the center of the boat, not to mention the fear of the engine exploding. They cast off at 1 p.m. The vessel puffed away from the dock and stalled. The passengers whispering turned into loud mumbles, which eventually gave way to shouts of dismay. Sensing their fear, Fulton promised to return to the dock if he could not fix the problem. After a short time, there was a huge blast of smoke. Once again, the boat churned upriver, described as looking like a giant tea kettle. The vessel's engines let off steam, raining down sparks that sizzled in the water. The noise was deafening, but the boat was moving and the passengers cheered. Chugging upstream against the tide at least 4 miles per hour, it easily passed sailing ships and fishing crafts. In its wake, the boat's 2 side paddle wheels left waves of foamy water and lots of terrified onlookers, looking like it ever had been seen before. Nothing like it had ever been seen before. Darkness fell, but the boat continued its journey. All right, so we've read through it one time. Now we need to go ahead and chunk our text. Now, the way that I personally see this text is written is you to have a definite beginning where they provide you the author provides you with a little bit of background information, and then they have the middle where the author talks about the issues that they had with the preparing the boat and actually getting it underway, and then the end is of course a happy ending where the boat is steaming up the river. So I'm going to go ahead and divide my text and simply forgive the poorly drawn squiggly line, but there is one portion. And then here's in the center here is where I feel that the second portion is. Again, forgive the poorly drawn squiggly line. Okay, and then finally we have the last portion where things worked out a little bit better. So now we've divided our text, we've chunked our text. The top part is part one, the beginning, where the author introduces to you what's going on, and then the middle is discusses the problems that they had, and then the end where you have the happy ending. All right, so now we're going to go through and simply highlight any key details. Fulton's Follies people jeered as they passed Brown's shipyard in New York City. Brown's shipyard in New York City. Do you think that might be important? Not only does it tell you where the boat was made, but it also identifies the city that it is in. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that. Again, forgive the let me go ahead and make that a little bit better for you. Brown's shipyard in New York City. Okay, it was 1807. Key date right there. Look at that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and circle that. And Brown was the site where inventor Robert Fulton and his partner Robert R. Livingston. Robert Fulton and his partner Robert Livingston Jr. were building a very strange boat. The two men knew that putting a steam engine on board a vessel was still new and dangerous, but they ignored the taunts. They were convinced that Fulton's steamboat, combined with Livingston's financial backing, would revolutionize transportation in America, and they were right. On August 17th, key date, let's go ahead and circle that. After devoting about 5 months to its construction, Fulton launched a vessel that measured 150. Got dimensions right there. That you could either circle or underline, but since it's such a long part of the sentence, I'm going to go ahead and underline it. Fulton and a group of invited guests prepared to steam up the Hudson River from New York City to Albany. That's important. Okay, the guests had to put up with primitive conditions, no cabins, beds, and uncovered steam engine mounted in the center of the boat. Primitive conditions. Primitive conditions is important, not to mention the fear of the engine exploding. They cast off at 1 p.m. The vessel puffed away from the dock and stalled. The passengers whispered, turned into loud mumbles, which eventually gave way to shouts of dismay. Sensing their fear, Fulton promised to return to the dock if he could not fix the problem. After a short time, a huge bass of smoke. Once again, the boat churned upriver, described as looking like a giant tea kettle. That's important. The vessel's engines let off steam, raining down sparks that sizzled in the water. The noise was deafening, but the boat was moving, and the passengers jeered. Chugging upstream at least 4 miles per hour. And then in its wake, the boat's two side paddle wheels, and lots of terrified onlookers. Nothing like it had ever been seen before. Darkness fell, but the boat continued on its journey. All right, so now we've got a lot of the key information underlined, and as you see, there maybe we could go back and circle the 1 p.m. right there. It gives you an idea of time. But so now we've got the facts and figures underlined and some important information. Now would be the time that you go back and annotate. All right, so now I've gone ahead and I'm all done my underlining and circling, and I've gone ahead and annotated my margins. If you look now, obviously I've highlighted the information in different colors and made it bold. And if you have colored pencils, it's always a good idea to go ahead and make this information stand out, because it's probably the most important, especially when you're going back later and trying to answer questions or summarizing the information. So let's go ahead and look at the left margin. And the left margin is where you're trying to analyze what the author is saying. And in the first paragraph, I felt the first paragraph's purpose was to provide an introduction to both Fulton and Livingston, and what exactly the steamboat was about. And then in the middle paragraphs, I thought that the author was trying to stress the problems that Fulton was having with his early steamboat, and the fears, maybe perhaps some of the fears that were in the public's view, because this was a new idea, a new concept. And then, of course, in the bottom, it was the steamboat was successful, and it ended up chugging upstream against the tide at least 4 miles per hour. All right, so that's what I felt the author was trying to get across in each of the chunked areas. Now, maybe if there was some questions or digging deeper into the text, I've put those in blue on the right side, and what I felt the digging deeper into the text in the first paragraph was, well, this was obviously, it was important to note that this was the first attempt at using a steamboat, and I felt it would be interesting to dig deeper and to understand why he had passengers on such a dangerous journey, and certainly, you know, some background into why he invited people to come on his boat, if it was in fact so dangerous. I know today that if something is dangerous, they want the public as far away as possible until it's tested and determined to be safe. So I would like to know some more information about that. And in the second grouping, I again was curious, did he test the boat first, and what would have happened if the boat in fact did not get restarted, did not come to life, so to speak. And then, of course, in the bottom, so what happened next? And of course, we know just how important the steamboat became to transportation in America. All right, so now we've gone ahead and we've close read this, and actually, if you think about it, we've read this text at least 3 times all the way through. The first time was our cold read, and the second time we were underlining and circling, and then the third time we were determining the key points and wanting to dig deeper into the text. So that's a basic look at what exactly close reading is. Now, this is not an exact science, and it will vary with different types of text, but certainly it can be used in anything that you read.